What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Arena with me, your host, Matt, and my co host, MD. First and foremost, thank you all so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please, give the show 5 stars. Give it 3 stars if you think it's a 3-star show, preferably five. And subscribe, tell your friends, family. We appreciate it. We're going to start because I remember after our last conversation, we continued to talk off air, and MD said something along the lines of that he found his mental health, and I'm not going to put words into his mouth, so I'll let him share, but something along the lines of that he found his mental health struggling, challenged, given everything that's going on in the world. And so, again, not verbatim what he said, but MD, curious where you were coming from, and if you could elaborate when you say that. Or
Yeah,
when you
no,
said that, I
totally. I
should
mean,
say.
yeah. By the way, we've probably had some 3-star episodes. That'd be fair.
That's fair. We're not perfect.
Yeah, no, I think that was. I don't know the context. That might have just been venting out loud, but probably a combination of two things. Number one, like I took on a role in my career where it's very consuming. So it's like forced me to learn a lot of new skills at once. Long story short, heavy change that has like pulled me, or I've like let it pull me, I think, away a little bit from this space a bit. So like focusing on joy and health and wellness and all the things I think we always talked about, which was like slowing down, being present, regulating, and like, so first off, like I was kind of thrown for a loop with that. But then I think, and I don't know if just more recently or over like the last year plus 2 years, probably 2 years, but it's just only ramped up. It's like the level of visibility we get into the entire world and the amount of hardship and struggle and quite frankly destruction that's happening. I think part of me also felt like I had a hard time reconciling even showing up to these conversations and talking about, I don't want to say menial things, but just concepts about compassion and joy, empathy and caring, but then not even mention or, put attention into like anything that's happening in the world right now. And I'm not asking anyone to necessarily be an expert on it, but I myself, in my alone time, which I have a lot of because I'm at a point where I wake up, I work out, I work, or I work and then I work out, one or the other. And then it's like my evening, what am I doing? And I'm just consuming all of this information. I'm consuming all of what's happening. And so before we even get into impact to mental health, I think first thing is like, I'm just consuming a ton. I can't get my eyes off it. There are like unlimited rabbit holes. One rabbit hole turns into a fork in the road to you can go one or the other one, and it's like I'll save the other one for tomorrow. Like, and I've just dug into like what's happening, the history of it, and I think there's just been so much learning, so much insight that it's sort of taken off a certain pair of glasses and it's made me see the world in an entirely different way. It's made me rethink a lot of things, everything from like how I'm spending time in my life.
Before you continue, let me just throw a quote at you that I saw yesterday. I was trying to think of it, but it reminded me when you talked about consuming. Stephen Bartlett just made like a new post, People Diary of a CEO Guy, and his caption was, quote, it was a quote he saw, because he put unknown, but it says, "Humans were designed to create. This is why we get depressed when all we do is consume."
Yeah. I think I've seen that actually. And yeah, I mean, and that could be that could be the mountain I've been climbing. is I've been fourth gear level consumption, and I don't know if I'm creating any more. I think I'm creating less. I'm creating a lot less. I think my only form of creation are outbounds in my role, right? Like, and man, has it had like a holistic impact on me. So I have to find a way to, I think, reconcile what is ultimately a desire to learn more and to keep like a finger on the pulse of what's going on, because I don't agree with the alternative of choosing ignorance. As of right now, I don't agree with them. My mind could change. But yeah, I couldn't agree more with that quote. I'm living it. And I'm not saying like I'm in crippling depression. I don't think you have to be able to have these conversations, right? But like I from where I am today, in contrast to where I was maybe 2 years ago, yeah, there's just, it's two different states of being for sure.
What when you say two different states of being, like, what does that look like? Maybe just high level, or what does that feel like?
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to describe the two states?
Yeah, just like paint the picture for someone that's like, what is it? Who was MD 2 years ago when he says two different states of being relative to who MD is today? Like, in practice, what does that either look and or feel like from someone that's living it and describing it?
Yeah, it feels like every day's a rainy, cloudy day. Like, that sounds like how people would describe depression, you know? But I don't know that I'm feeling that all the time. I think it's more around like an outlook of how I see the world. I'm far more pessimistic around. I think that I'm surrounded by a lot of people that are not, we're not saying the unspoken. We're not saying the quiet parts out loud. And we're all walking around each other. And it's almost like, I know that you know that I know, you know, and it's, nobody's talking about it. And it's just made me very critical of us as a people. I think, if anything, it's made me dive even deeper into understanding myself. But yeah, it's very pessimistic. It's a very, I don't know that I'm pursuing a feeling of joy, because it's just, what's the point when it feels artificial at this point here, like in this state of being, if you will, versus I think 2 years ago, like I felt like I was turning corners. I felt like I was
You were
learning
ripping
a lot
morning
about
sunsets,
myself. Yeah, ripping morning sunsets,
cold
taking
plunges into the lake,
walks, like, huh?
cold plunges into the lake.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I've done that maybe under 10 times, like, but there is, simply put, it was a focus inward and
Bringing
on me
ribeyes when
only.
everyone else was ordering out, bringing ribeyes to different places.
Yeah, yeah, ground beef, but, oh no, it was a ribeye, you're right, wow. Yeah, it was a soul attachment connection to myself. It was a focus inward. It was like, never mind what's happening in the world around me. And I was in a better state of being. And I think that's the part that I'm trying to reconcile, is like, how do I get back to that, but not do it the ignorant way? Do it while still searching for truths and still holding space for compassion in my heart for people on the other side of the world, because and that's what I'm wrestling with. Is like, I don't know that I agree that we shouldn't. So it's a lot to think about, man. It's just thrown some challenges my way, and but yeah, to go back to your question, I'm back to like more of my. It's not nihilism, but it's very discouraged. I feel very discouraged by what I feel like has been revealed of our humanity.
So I previewed this with you, but I'm reading a book called The Book of Joy. I actually just finished it, and it's basically about the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop. I wasn't super familiar with the Archbishop, but they get together in the Dalai Lama's place of residence in Tibet, I believe. And there's one other guy who's an author, a journalist, writer, and he basically follows them they hang out for an entire week, and he documents the journey, asks them a bunch of questions on joy, on suffering, on happiness, and documents their interactions. And there was one part in particular that kind of jumped out to me because it reminded me of the conversation that we had that you just now talked about. And I'm paraphrasing it a little bit, but basically this is what it was. And there was this person wanted to know how she can find this. By the way, they're asking, in this case, the Archbishop. This person wants to know how she can find joy in her life while there are so many people who are suffering. And he says, yes, very good. As an old man, I can say, start where you are and realize that you are not meant on your own to resolve all of these massive problems. Do what you can. Remember, you are not alone, and you do not need to finish the work. It takes time, but we are learning, we are growing, and we are becoming the people we want to be. It helps no one if you sacrifice your joy because others are suffering. We people who care must be attractive, must be filled with joy, so that others recognize that caring, that helping, and being generous are not a burden. They are a joy. Give the world your love, your service, your healing, but you can also give it your joy. This, too, is a great gift. Reactions?
Yeah. It's just got me thinking about the role of joy in our lives. Like, I think that we've had so many conversations about like traumatic healing, dark places, rock bottoms, depression, and it seems like we almost tend to, and I don't have a point of view quite yet. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah.
I think we tend to oversimplify the role of joy as like the other side, or like that if you're living joyfully, you're living correctly, or that we're supposed to be pursuing joy, or that even if you let joy just come to you, or we can choose to be happy. We're already, there was that quote that was like, man is so unhappy because he doesn't realize he's already happy, right? Like it just goes back down this like happiness joy path. And I'm just sitting here wondering like, fine, like I don't have to sacrifice my joy because I feel guilty of it. But I wonder about our sources of joy, and I wonder about.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's what they were describing in the book, to pursue purpose and service, because joy is a byproduct. Like basically, their whole premise is that the more self-regarding you are, the more you suffer, the more unhappy you are, the more you zoom out and focus on being of service and helping your fellow humans, your brothers and sisters, joy becomes the byproduct. Which I think is within that quote when he says, we people who care must be attractive, must be filled with joy, so that others recognize that caring, or maybe it was recognize that caring, that helping, and being generous are not a burden, they are a joy. And that really stuck with me.
And that's probably part of the formula that I missed out on early was, I don't know what my service is right now. I used to manage a team. I was very clear on who I was serving and what that felt like and what that looked like. And that was a big part of where my joy came from. And I couldn't agree more. I would not prevent myself from feeling joy if it comes from service. I think two things. Number one, the way that I'm serving isn't serving me. Damn. But I also think like, yeah, that's the line right there. But to take that more specifically, I think because of all of this truth that I feel like I've been privy to and revealed to, right? I think that I've taken it upon myself to be like a truth sharer. And I think that there's just, you know what I would equate it to almost is like early podcast days when you discovered the impact of therapy on your life. And it was almost like, I don't want to speak for you, but like there was an eagerness to get other people to realize that impact, you know? And I think that's where I'm at, where it's like I'm seeing the world in a way that I feel like is almost 180. You know, if it wasn't such a stark difference from what I thought the world was, then I don't think this would be an issue. But because I'm feeling like, oh my goodness, every step we've taken up until now, we've been lied to, and the world is actually this way, and this is how things are. It's like it almost bothers me, and this goes back to some of my tendencies around control and perfectionism. It bothers me to be around a sea of ignorance. It just grinds me down. And so I think I've taken it upon myself not to fix the things per what the Archbishop talks about. Like, I realize I personally, individually, can't fix everything, and that's not what's keeping me up at night. But what is I think just constantly being surrounded in an environment where I'm like, oh my goodness, like I'm over here and everybody else is over here. Like, and that's really grinded me down. I think that's worn me down. And I think it's it's put my serving energy, and I don't want to say in the wrong place, but in a place that is not serving me.
In what way? Like when you say what isn't serving you in particular, just like
I'm not having the impact on people that I used to have. You know, like if I was doing something as like Street Samaritans, right? Like very clear impact, direct correlation of effort to impact. And
so you're gathering a bunch of information, but you're not maybe distributing
it. And I'm sharing it, but I feel like I'm screaming in the void. I feel like people don't care. I feel like whether I'm even saying it or not, I'm more just like dumbfounded at how many people are just like not even like looking at it. It's out there, you know? And so it's totally warped. And it's cast a shadow over my perception of humanity. That's, you know, and things I think are darker than I ever really took them for. And so what I've had to resort to, and I think where you and I probably could see eye to eye very easily, is like I have to just get back to living my life in followership of, for me, it's Jesus Christ, right? Like that to me, that's service, and that's finding purpose through that. And I think that I have to lean more into that, because that for me is the medicated light to all this darkness for me.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, I've my perspective on this continues to change, to go to different places, and I think what I found for myself is that I feel like there's stuff on the internet that, like, I think it's one thing to be knowledgeable of or understand what's going on, but I don't think we're meant to like see as humans. And I feel like seeing that, you know, can be like over and over. So like even like you know watching Charlie Kirk get, like, you know, fatally shot in the chest, like watching that video is like gives me the heebie-jeebies, you know. And like I think we can like know what's going on and like be privy to it without overly consuming that. And I know there's people that probably watch it like 100 times, and it's like that is so harmful to like, your state of being. And so my whole thing has been like, I try to the best of my ability, live my life. I try to dedicate my life to service in a way that I can be of service to the world. I fall short of that, of course. But even the other day, I was like asking myself, I'm like, how can I be more of service in my day-to-day life? Like what can I do? And like one idea I had was like I can start creating content around like, I posted one of those help me celebrate videos where like I'm standing in Oak Brook and I'm just like have a, because like to me that's like authentic to me. I mean I felt cringe like standing there with a freaking sign, but like, I was able to spread, some joy. There was one lady that came up, she's like, oh my gosh, that was like so nice and like that made me feel good. And one lady came up and hugged me randomly. Like it's just like little ways that like for me I'm serving. I'm doing what I can in this moment. And so I've tried to focus more on like what I can do, because I recognize that like it really does have a compound effect that you don't see, that you will never see. Like I think about, because I always say this in one of my keynotes, like I have people send a message of appreciation. And for some people like in the moment, and for some people that's weird, that's uncomfortable, that's awkward, they've never done it before, like it's vulnerable. And one of the nudges or one of the ways I try to give a nudge to people to like invite them to do it is be like, hey, like if we have 150 people in this room and 150 people send a message right now, 75 on the receiving end are going to feel so good about themselves, like they've never had that happen to them before, that they're going to be inspired to do the same and pay it forward. And so like small acts of kindness, large acts of kindness do have a ripple effect and are positively impacting the world, I think, more than we often give ourselves credit for. And so I've always just, at least, over the last couple of years, have really tried to focus on what can I actually do, like action. And I've even gotten a little bit away from that, which I'm like Street Samaritans, for example. Things outside of my kind of day to day, where I mean my work is obviously service oriented, and I do feel like I'm doing my part there, but just different ways to get like involved. I think maybe the one area I lack a little bit is maybe informed on some of the different things going on in the world, and like hand up that's just true for me. But I also recognize that like I can only take in so much. Like I can only hold on to so much. I can only like, I'm just one human being. So I just try to, I think I really resonated with the Archbishop, that quote, because I think it does heal. Like when you show up with, with joy in what you're doing, and especially when it's like serving the world, I think it radiates. I really do. I think it has a really big effect on people. So that's kind of where my head's at. I recognize that maybe there's probably flaws in the way I do things, but I do feel like I'm living a life of purpose and service, and to the best of my abilities in certain arenas. I also recognize that I can't handle every single issue that's going on in the world. You know what I mean? Like I try to pick my lane and like really do what I can in that lane.
Yeah, and it's what I'm hearing a lot of, and what I think applies to all of this, is the like throwing the baby with the bathwater kind of metaphor, which is like, there are a lot of things that I can clean up and improve, but I don't want to throw everything out. I need to retain the good. I need to retain that individualistic perspective, which is like, what am I doing in the world today? Like personally, individually. And how do I balance that with also maintaining an awareness of what's happening in the world around me. You know, can I be a bead
And that
of
could be
light?
your lane. Like that could be your thing.
What do you mean?
Like, for me, my thing is mental health and self-compassion and spreading love. Like that's just like my arena that feels like home to me, that feels like I feel really passionate about. But like yours could be spreading awareness, like global awareness on the different tragedies going on. Like right now, I feel like you're doing a lot of consuming and education, and maybe I see you post on social media, you repost things, but like maybe your thing is like writing about it or like doing, taking all the consuming that you're doing together and then creating something to broaden the level of awareness around it. You know what I mean? Like that could be, it could, maybe it's not, but it could be your way
I'm
of.
I'm right there, man. I think the issue is that these topics are pretty dicey, and you know,
Hey, you're gonna have to get in the arena. I mean, you're in the arena.
yeah, it's like you create, and I'll have to really understand. I'll have to really be able to realize, like literally realize, like see real time if that's actually serving or if that's like what I don't necessarily want to do is start just expressing, right? And maybe I
Yeah.
could, right? Maybe that's the point of content creation, right? But it has to come from a serving energy. I can't do it from the place that I feel like I'm consuming it in, which is hatred and anger. If I consume from that energy and then immediately start creating from it,
Maybe it's expression first in the journal and then create and then creating.
yeah. But maybe that's the point there, Matt. Like I just called you Matt. Maybe that's the point, though. Maybe that is my lane. Maybe it's how do we find ways to express this from a place of love, and how do we reconcile, information sharing and point of view sharing, while also preserving my own morality, my own coming from a non-judgmental place. And I've been coming from a very judgmental place in a lot of these elements or a lot of these areas. And so maybe my Insta account revives itself and takes a somewhat political turn, and maybe that's my calling. But by the way, it's funny you mentioned the Charlie Kirk video. That was an eye-opening moment for me because I saw so many people's reactions to that. My reaction, I watched it maybe once or twice. It was like another piece of content I just scrolled. The level of desensitization, I don't want to say, well, it's desensitization, whatever, fuck. But it's a conditioning. I have built up such a conditioning to seeing such horrors on my phone screen that I kid you not, I can watch that video 100 times straight. I get bored, but like it wouldn't. It's like nothing.
Yeah.
Versus, I saw reactions to it, and granted, those are probably the better, like the more proper reactions. I would want humans to react that way. But it gave me a mirror and said, Mike, look at how much you've seen up until this point. Look how much you've endured consuming wise, to the level of which you saw that video and it was like the only thing you had to really do was just mentally process that this guy you actually knew very well, like from like a social media perspective, is dead now. But from like an emotional, from like a, it was kind of sad, but like from an ability to like see it, brother, like nothing, like a meme. And that,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that proudly. I'm saying that explicitly.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I don't. It's just that. Like I remember exactly where I was when I watched that video for the first time, and that's because it had an emotional, like like it had an imprint, like like it stuck with me. That, you know what I mean? Because like it was like whoa, you know, and
It's disturbing. It's a disturbing video. It's not a happy video.
yeah, it's just like things that I mean, God forbid I mean, 30 years ago, if you were never around it, you'd never see that in your life. You know what I mean? Like,
And that's, yeah.
the hope is you never do. But now, with social media, like, we're just carrying so much and just seeing so much that's just, again, we're just not meant to, you know, take in.
My my reaction also was, I was a little, I don't know if angry. I was frustrated because of when I saw the levels of reaction to that video, I immediately equated it to, oh, they've just not seen enough. This is tip of the iceberg. Like, if you're going to have that reaction to that video, you haven't seen anything across the world. And like, again, I think when I went through that realization of like, oh my goodness, like this video got people like all up in, let me find like, 100 worse, way worse stuff I couldn't even describe that I've just consumed, like potato chips, like I've just consumed it. I didn't mean to. It was on my iPhone. But once I started, I couldn't stop. And
why do you think that
yeah,
is?
I remember, huh?
Why do you think that is? You say when you started consuming it, you can't stop.
Yeah, I don't know. Curiosity, like it's stuff you've never seen before. Whether it's, take the emotion out of it, right? Like, you see something you've never seen before, you're not going to just take your eyes off it. You might have a reaction, but curiosity, I think, brings me back sometimes. And then the algorithm, obviously, it latches on. And so I have a general addiction to my phone. And then on top of it, out of habit, I'm just, while I'm waiting for something to load on my computer, I open up Instagram and I'm seeing dead babies. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, how do you exist in that? And yeah, to some extent, maybe it's been a coping mechanism, dude. Like, maybe I've gone to a place where it's like I've become so calloused and desensitized to seeing these visuals that maybe a human being should have never seen on their iPhone at that rate and at that level of clarity. And how do you cope? I don't know, man. Like, maybe I'm just expressing anger towards the world, right? Like, that's deep stuff, though. Like, that.
Yeah.
So, it's just, anyway, when you brought up the Kirk video and, like, the reactions to it, that brings me to a very specific place that I remember. I'm like, and that's what I'm wrestling with right now, man. It's like, I'm really having to find that, like, that in between of like, how do I still show up in the world and capture that individualistic part? Like, I love the idea of celebrating people at Oakbrook Mall, right? Like, I don't despise the idea, but there are parts of me that will look at that and be like, does this guy have any idea what's going on in the world right now? Like, and I don't mean that.
Yeah.
As targeted as it sounds. I'm trying to find, how do I do that like he's doing, but it doesn't feel tone deaf from what I've seen and what I know is happening right now. And I want to accomplish that. I'm not saying one is right versus the other. I want to accomplish the in-between there, and I'm trying to find the answer to that.
I feel like, the answer is probably some sort of action in some form. I mean,
yeah,
it's like, because it's like, what's the alternative?
Well, and I think that was something else you had posted, like the strongest form of activism is your daily action, something like that, right? Like the actions you take.
Yeah. Something.
Living the life that you believe should be lived, or like doing it through your actions. And that's where I failed, and that's where I'm critical of myself, compassionately, Is like, okay, fine, Mike, but are you from wake to sleep? Are you doing the things that are aligned to? No, no, right? Because of how dysregulated I've been, how like worn down I've been. I've resorted back to binge eating and bad habits, and like it's like a level of the video game I just can't beat right now, and
Yeah.
I'm daily going back and trying to beat that level.
Because I think about like it's like what would Jesus do, and like I think there's part of me that's probably living in alignment with that, and then there's the other part where like Jesus also focused on the people most in need. So like again, which is why I would also want I'd like to get back more into just general social causes. Going out in the streets
Yeah.
like street Samaritans and really helping those that are in kind of most dire need. So I think there's a balance. Like, yeah, I can go, help some people at the Oakbrook Mall feel better about them. It makes me feel good. It's fulfilling. It leaves. Again, I think it's just I'm creating, then putting it out in the world in social media. Like it's good, positive content that's hopefully inspiring people to, live similarly, and to balance that with helping those most in need, the most vulnerable, which isn't directly like in line with like my work or anything, but it's just kind of the right thing to do. So I think it's kind of striking a balance for me for those two things, but they all involve doing in some form for the most part. I mean, yeah, I'll create like I guess I'm still creating when I create content, but like they all involve going out there and having conversations and things of that nature. Um,
You know who does a really good job of this that I'll speak for myself that I could stand to learn from more is BC.
oh, BC's great. Yeah,
I think he
you
does an
guys should
awesome job.
plug. Go listen to the episode with BC Cerna. It was recent. It's a great conversation. Anyways,
Yeah, I think he does an awesome job of being aware and consuming of the world around him to whatever extent. I don't know specifics, right? It's hard to measure, but you can tell that his content is amazing and it's often tethered to what's happening in the world. It's often tethered to like specifics. Like he'll cite just like here's what's happening and here's how you can be a man about it, right? Or like here's what the masculine does about it or the feminine or and it's rooted in we share a belief system that helps. Like his content obviously resonates with me because we're both followers of a certain belief system. But yeah, he just comes to mind as somebody who's I think nailed it, at least from the outside looking in.
I think because I think he really like he spends a lot of time in stillness and
Yeah.
meditation, and I think he really sits with it and like allows himself to feel to the extent of like what's going on and just like the suffering going on and his world and the world around him, and then he's like, well, and again he's a believer of man of faith, of a follower of Jesus, and so he's like he talks to God. He's like, what can I do about this? Like, tell me what to. And so then his next thing is like, all right, now like how can I start? How can I alleviate this? Like, what can I do to alleviate? At least in my role. So I think he's very much like. I mean, I got to give him credit. Like he really lives like to me like a godly life. He embodies to me what it is. He lives like Jesus to me. He's not perfect. I'm not going to sit here and put him on a pedestal because I'm sure he's flawed just like all of us. But he does a really good job, I think, of living a life that a lot of people, I think, deep down desire to live. But just again, it requires a lot of courage. It requires a lot of discomfort to not just have those conversations, but then just to like to take time out of your day to go serve those in need. Like you don't really, I mean, in a selfish way, you're not really gaining anything from that. You're just helping out your fellow, human beings, which is inherently the right thing to do. And as a byproduct of that, oftentimes, to me, is joy, but sometimes it's not, and that's okay. I think the joy comes from when you're in your purpose, like when you're serving in a way that is really directly connected to you. Like for me, it's mental health and my challenges. and then help turning your pain into your purpose, and really like you're connected to it in some form, to it in a deep level. Like that's
Yeah.
where the joy comes. And then there's also just service, just to be a good human being and to help those in need, because it's the godly and the right thing to do, where you do it because you want to and you should, but you're not necessarily connected to that particular issue or that particular challenge or that particular cause. So you might not get like that like rush of just of joy, but you will go to bed with the peace, with peace, because you've done the right thing.
Yeah, no, and it's also just making me think of all like the content I have been creating, but in my iPhone notes or in my like journal that I write in, it's like I've been finding ways to express it. I just it just feels like it feels like the content is centered around such like high stakes level stuff, like, and I think there's a lot of fear around these topics. And so, yeah, I mean, the last thing I wrote, because I think I'm inching towards like leaning into this stuff, but I think I've let other people's fear have bearing on my own courage, if that makes sense. But having to really like align to this idea of like your fear of the truth has no bearing on my courage for it. Like having to really subscribe to that. And like if I truly want to lean into truth, and if I truly want to like express that and spread that and put that into the world around me, like I can't not have the courage to do that. And I think that's the other element of the whole thing that we're talking about, that BC nails, is the guy's courageous beyond who knows what, right? Like, and he'll say it in his content, which that's where I'm coming from. I'm just coming off of what he says in his content of like, I thought about this one for 3 nights, or like I wrote this out and I asked my wife if I should post this, right? Like you can tell that his content, even though it comes across so sharp and high quality, my opinion, what is he wrestling behind the scenes to get that piece out? Just like you holding the sign in Oakbrook. You didn't have to do your little blooper thing or like your behind the scenes, but we often see the guy with the sign doing the thing. What we often maybe don't appreciate enough is the level of courage it took to get like one step at a time.
You didn't see the 2 months straight where I've been trying to tell myself I wanted to do that, and came up with a billion different excuses.
Dude, right? And it's like, sure, it's never as bad as we make it out to be, but at the same time, we just have to appreciate we're human, and mustering up courage will take time for certain things. So anyway, man, this has been a helpful conversation. As you can tell, I'm in a different place. I'm in a different arena right now than I've been in the past, and I want to just end with just a note of gratitude that we should be grateful for these challenges. We should be grateful for
100%.
As much as it's sucked to go through whatever I've been going through. And not to make it about me, but I can only speak to within the confines of what I've felt and what I've endured. To know that to go back to optimism, right? Because I think I started off with like I'm in a place of pessimism, but to end on like an optimistic note that like this is all serving a greater purpose, all of it. These conversations, whatever I've been finding myself wrestling with over the last year plus. It's a season of life, man. As I texted you very vaguely that one day, like it's just a season of life that is hard to put into words, but I think big picture, I'll be able to look back at this and be grateful for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to validate everything we're feeling, both good and bad. And I think for me recently, I sometimes I'll like spiritual bypass, I think they call it, where it's like anytime I feel like some sort of challenge, I'll just try to, I'm almost like conditioned to be like, to bring myself back to gratitude right away. And like I think that's helpful, but like also I have to like sometimes I just need to allow myself to like be with the challenge, be with the feelings, because like you gather information through that, like when you process that stuff and figure out why you're discouraged or why you're disappointed or why you're angry. I think it's important to, like, again, those are signals. And so sometimes I need to just let myself kind of feel those feels, recognize that I'm human. I don't know, man. I'm living a life I dreamed of. So every single day. And I just never believed any of this was possible. So it's like, I don't fault myself for the gratitude that I feel towards life. And again, like you said, like consuming everything you consume and just like knowing what's going on in the world, I just recognize how incredibly blessed I am. Like it is beyond my wildest dream. Like I sit here in awe. Like I didn't earn any of this. I didn't choose to, like, none of us choose to be here, and I just get dropped in, and I've got like a top 0.001% life. It's just, so I really just do feel just grateful. And then again, it's fuel to give back. It's fuel to give those that weren't given the same opportunities. So,
and I think that that's a very key distinction, is that you recognize and you accept your gift. And I think a lot of people accepted their gift but don't recognize it. And I think when I see that, that's the part that I struggle with. But that comes from a place of judgment, right? And that's where I get this like feeling of like I'm undeserving of my own gift, But I don't have to be. I don't have to have deserved it.
You won't feel, and I don't think you'll feel undeserving of it if you use it for good.
Right, recognizing it, accepting it, and then using it. Using it, I think, is the takeaway for me, man.
All right, guys. Well, you heard it here first. Again, if you enjoyed this conversation, again, 5 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars, whatever you feel called to do. Again, subscribe, share with your friends, family, and also comment. Tell us how you feel about the episode. We're always happy to answer any questions and things of that nature. We are signing off. Love you guys.